hold the phone. The sun came out today. We're born again. There's new grass on the field. Around the third.
We're back.
It's a brown
I'm Marshmallow. I'm here sitting here with Hitler. Say hi, Hitler.
Hi, Hitler!
And we're
Drunk on a weeknight.
Gentlemen, I'm sitting here drinking a fine Jack and Coke. What is your concoction this evening?
I'm drinking what I like to call a margarita. It's like it's a tequila drink
I
with a little bit of ice, and it's like a sweet and sour mix with it.
You're
It's very limey.
You're
It's
a goddamn alcohol wizard, I gotta say.
Yeah, it's a little.
It's baseball season!
Yay!
Hey, oh, that was zooming on in there. So we're here sitting here on our inaugural podcast for this coming up season, and we're here to talk about and break down our first baseman, the big guys. Fat asses, got the big arms, not so quick running in between them bases, but we don't need them to when they hit it out of the park.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Hitler,
Yes, sir.
who's your number one first baseman this year?
For me, I can't argue against the average ADP. I probably take Paul Goldschmidt.
Goldie.
One. Yeah,
Goldilocks.
I like some Goldilocks in my life.
Is that fool's gold, do you think?
Oh, yeah. Actually, my thought on that is Paul Goldschmidt, of all the first basemen, is probably your guy who is the most well-rounded player when it comes to the first baseman. He gets you some stolen bases. He hits for a high average. He's going to get you the RBIs. He's going to get you a handful of home runs, if not more than that. Like I said, just a well-rounded player, especially for those of you in our rotisserie leagues. He's going to be a great asset to your team. Not only that, but the Diamondbacks made some moves this offseason that may actually end up helping him with the acquisition of Mark Trumbo, hitting behind him. Could really help him out.
It's still Arizona. I just refuse to believe that Paul Goldschmidt is our new number one first baseman in the league. I'm not saying I don't hate the guy. I just actually think he would be really good. But I just feel like you are betting on a lot on this young guy to actually round into form and be the number one guy. When it comes to my drafting, I like to be a little bit more tried and true. I like to sacrifice a little bit of upside for consistency, for just peace of mind, what have you.
Yeah.
You're willing to risk that for the upside you think Goldschmidt brings?
Well, I think because Paul Goldschmidt, we've been talking about Paul Goldschmidt for years, and he's so young, and just the fact that last year he put together a really good season and put all the numbers there.
He's had two good seasons, yes, and
right.
He's
a young.
I just don't know if that's enough yet for me.
If you've played 3 seasons and 2 of them have been good, then you might be a good player.
Good player doesn't necessarily equal number one.
Right. No, I agree with the fact that you may have some questions, but the questions for me are all answered in the fact that last year he had 125 RBI on a team that really didn't perform all that well. Arizona could have been a lot better than they were, obviously. You could say that for a lot of teams that missed out on the playoffs.
Uh-huh.
But when it comes down to Arizona last year, I think they underperformed. This year, I expect them to do better, and with that, I think comes a run at Paul Goldschmidt doing a little better. Number 2 in the NL MVP voting last year, I think he'll repeat as a good performer at first base.
See, this is where I'm going to have to disagree with you. My number one first baseman going into the year, who's been around for almost 10 years, has had some excellent seasons, someone who I think has a better chance of being in the top 3 versus Goldschmidt, and that is my boy, Edwin Encarnacion.
You're a dumbass.
I think he's you may sacrifice a little bit when it comes to your batting average. If you your rotisserie leagues out there give a shit about that, but when it comes to home runs or RBIs, just all around play, I think that I'd rather for peace of mind's sake just settle for Encarnacion, knowing that he's going to be in the top 5. Goldschmidt, I cannot promise you that.
Yeah, I think Encarnacion is maybe one of the biggest questions in the top 5 for me. Hit around 270 last year. That brings up some questions for me as far as average goes. Like we said earlier about the rotisserie leagues, that's going to be a problem for you if you're looking for a first-round draft pick. You usually want the full package and like a Miguel Cabrera or someone like that. But when it comes to Encarnacion, I love the power. I love what he does as far as run production, RBIs, home runs. If you're looking to maybe punt batting average, then you're in a pretty good spot if you take Encarnacion. I think overall, I really can't take him that high in the draft just because I think there's just too many questions. He leaves you empty-handed. Yeah,
you have so many questions, and I feel I'm the safest with him.
Yeah, no, I actually disagree. Just because there's another guy right behind him that I think could be a little bit better, but
I know what you're gonna say. You love Chris Davis.
Well, no, actually.
Really, you are shocking me, Hitler.
I know.
That
I know.
You don't love Chris Davis.
My man crush. My man crush. Chris
You do
Davis.
not like Chris Davis this year.
No, I like him. I don't know if I like him number 2 overall in the first baseman. You're talking to a guy last year who got Chris Davis in nearly every draft, late round, and just reaped in the benefits of that guy. I've been counting on Crush for a while to do what he did last year. He finally pulled it off for me. I look like a genius when in the previous seasons I looked like a dumbass. Truthfully, though, I just don't know if he outperforms himself last year, and I just wonder if he might regress back to the.
You wonder if he might regress. Chris Davis is a piece of shit.
Whoa!
This guy has got
wowzers.
His Popeye arms are going to be square up his ass this year and not gripping a bat. His RBIs, his home runs practically doubled last year from his previous high. There's just no way that's going to continue. He's going number 2 in mock drafts right now, and there's just zero chance he's 1 or even 2 at the end of the year. Do not believe it, folks. He is a piece of shit. You will hate him if you take him that high.
Nah, don't count yourself out too much. If you can maybe skip out if a few people really hate him, like Marshmallow apparently does.
That's not going to happen,
Jump on it.
I'm warning you, folks. Don't be that guy who drafts him, because the minute you take him in your first or even second round, you're done. You're donezo. Get lost. Your season is over.
Don't listen to Marshmallow, because there's a couple of things you got to know about Chris Davis. Everyone's going to
talk
talk
about... The only thing you have to know about Chris Davis is that he injects spinach directly into his forearms to hit home runs. There's a mass shortage right now in California when it comes to spinach subsidies. Canned goods are at an all-time premium. That shit is not getting to Baltimore this year. Don't count on it. Continue, Hitler.
Well, okay. You know what? You've shocked me. You've left me speechless. Chris Davis, if you go back and look at his stats, everyone's going to talk about how crazy 2013 was for Chris Davis, when the truth is his seasons before that weren't too bad when it comes to the power numbers. I think he had over 30 home runs the year before. I could be wrong. It looks like 2012 he had 33 home runs. Like I said, nothing too crazy when it comes to that. A jump from 33 to 53 is quite a bit when you're looking at the RBIs. But there's one thing you got to consider. Some players just do well with the change of scenery. Chris Davis moving from Texas, where his question, his starting ability, his no question about his defense, obviously, very good defender. But when it came down to his run production, his power in Texas, it was questioned from time to time because he just couldn't put the barrel to the ball. So a change of scenery is sometimes nice. Baltimore, their recent progression from sometimes the joke of the AL to a potential contender, those changes for a player are really good, and I think that probably helps him moving forward.
All right, so moving on further down the list, what we got here going down number 4 in our mock drafts, Prince Fielder.
Love it!
Royalty himself, the Prince of Vegetarians, is now a Texas Ranger. Now, Hitler, do you like the change? You just got done talking about the change of scenery was a good thing for Chris Davis coming from Texas. Mm-hmm. How is this going to affect Prince Fielder going to Texas?
See, a lot of people will talk about how easy it is to hit a home run in Texas and Coors Field and things like that.
The air is cleaner. It's a little bit
pure.
It's a little bit purer in Texas.
Yeah, Texas. So when you look at left-handed hitters in Texas, you look at the jet stream in the midsummer months. So at the ballpark in Arlington, I think it's actually been recently named, and I will not mention that new name. But the jet stream in Texas does wonders for hitters in the midsummer months. And I think it's actually going to have a positive effect on Prince Fielder's stats. If you go back and look at his stats and his splits in Texas for the last several years, it actually hasn't been all that good. And you're going to hear experts report that, he doesn't hit all that well in Texas, but he's always been a visiting hitter. You can't just consider the fact that just because he doesn't hit well in like 11 or 12 games over the history of his career at the ballpark, that doesn't mean that he won't have consistent production and perform well in that ballpark. I think for left-handed hitters, especially hitters like Prince Fielder, I think he's going to produce. I think he could actually be your potential number one overall first baseman by year's end.
You just called it.
I called
exactly everything I said earlier. Prince Fielder is the prototypical Marshmallow number one first baseman. This guy's been around for a while, consistently getting close to 100 runs, 170, 180 hits. His home runs, 20s and 30s, even 40s, very consistently. Grab him. I would much rather have Prince Fielder, know what I'm getting from him. He's been extremely healthy. He hasn't missed a single game in 3 years. He's missed one game in 5 years. Come on, buddy.
Please knock on wood. Please. I cannot be having those kind
Prince Fielder is my man. I don't just love Prince Fielder. I think I might actually be in love with Prince Fielder.
That's saying a lot.
That is saying a lot because I'm as heterosexual as they come, baby.
Well,
I did just call you baby there. Maybe I have to realign all my perceptions.
You probably didn't know that about yourself.
Moving on, down to Freddie Freeman.
Let's talk about this guy.
Freddie Freeman sounds like the lovable scamp from like an old Dick Tracy cartoon.
Yeah, I think so. I think that was actually a character.
Wasn't that?
Yeah.
I mean, he sounds like he's always getting into trouble and someone has to come and bail him out. But he ain't getting drafted like that. He's getting drafted like he's a superhero. Freddie Freeman, number 6 from Atlanta. What do you like about Freddie?
What I like about Freddie is the fact that he kind of flies under the radar. I don't know if it's because he's in Atlanta and not in New York or Boston or L.A.
Do you think it's the Amish chin beard? Do you think he just kind of blends into the...
It might be the Amish chin beard, or it might be the fact that his first name's Freddie and no one actually knows that he plays baseball.
Freddie is a very 7-year-old name. You don't meet many CEOs of major Fortune 500 companies named Freddie.
Exactly. So that may play into it. Number 6 overall, he really does fly under the radar.
Had a great year last year.
Great year last year. You might see some regression this year, but don't count on it because I actually like this kid. I like where he's going in drafts, number 6 overall. If you can snag him, he's 24 years old. I mean, he's just now entering the prime of his power production. If he can hit, let's say 5 more home runs, just for the sake of the argument, let's say 7 more home runs than he did last year. That puts him at 30 home runs.
30.
He's hitting about 320 if he does what he did last year. He's going to have over 100 RBI and close to 100 runs. This guy could be a stellar performer for you if you draft him among your top draft picks.
I also like Freddie Freeman. He's been around for kind of the same amount of time as Goldschmidt. He's had a lot more games though played than Goldschmidt. He also had a great batting average last year, just similar to Goldschmidt. I think the rest of his numbers are there. I like his team better this year. I think Atlanta is underrated going into the season. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say Freddie Freeman has a better season than Paul Goldschmidt.
Whoa! Now I got to think about this because this would be our first.
This would be the first. This will be the first one for the board. You think about this one. I put myself on a limb there. We did not discuss this, folks.
Wow.
What do you think?
You know what? I've thought about it. I've come to a decision.
And?
Let it ride, please.
You got it, folks. First one on the board. Give me Freddie Freeman.
And I will take Paulie Goldschmidt.
All day, baby. Moving on. My boy, My bread and butter, Buster Posey.
Man,
I love Buster Posey. I don't know if there's another baseball player today that I like just more than Buster Posey. I love watching him play the game. I love watching him on my stat line. The fact that he has catcher eligibility makes
gotta
him.
love that.
Mwah.
Gotta love that. You are in love with the dual eligibility
I
players.
do
I
love
know
them.
that gives you a lot of flexibility.
I don't consider guys with catching as necessarily dual eligibility because I'm just never going to move them out of the catcher spot.
Right.
However, in this situation, just because catcher is such a premium, if you can get the number one catcher as a first baseman, and you plug him in your catcher spot right here,
Yeah.
the fact that he's that high on first baseman list tells you just how good of a catcher he is. We'll get into more of that when we start breaking down catchers. But man, I just love Buster Posey.
You love Buster Posey. You love dual eligibility. You and like Buster Posey, Ben Zobrist kind of guys.
Yes.
I don't even know if do you draft more than just those two players every year?
Those are the guys I target because
I think
those two guys kind of fill out the entire starting lineup.
Yeah, funny how that works out for you. Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree about Buster Posey. I think he's a solid player, especially when you can plug him into that catcher spot. He's going to get you more games played. So for those of you who play in a daily league, as far as the catcher spot goes, target this guy just because he's going to get you an extra game versus your other catchers in the league. Not a lot of guys like that, aside from maybe a Joe Mauer, depending on the type of league you play in, that could do that for you. And Buster Posey's just leaps and bounds over those other guys.
Great batting average, pretty decent power numbers, and just a terrific All-American smile. What am I saying? This Jack and Coke is giving me a case of the queers.
Are you describing me?
I don't.
Or,
Yeah, that's very true. Your smile is radiant.
I never know.
Anything else on Buster, or should we move on to Eric Hosmer?
It sounds weird, right?
Am I saying that right? Is there a question mark there on the prompter?
Why am
I speaking in such a high-pitched voice?
It's because you don't believe in the Hosmer.
No, I don't. But I don't know why. That's why I don't hate it. But I just feel like at this point, if you're selling for Eric Hosmer as your starting first baseman, you fucked up somewhere. I know that somebody's going to have to, but man, I just feel like there's such a drop-off at this point.
Well, you got to remember.
And I could be completely wrong. It's just gut feeling.
You got to remember.
It's just perception.
Eric Hosmer's been in the league for several years. He's only 24 years old, though.
Okay.
His rookie season just had a phenomenal production. Played really well. Just really probably outperformed his talents as a rookie. However, the last 2 years, he's kind of come down a bit. Those of you who drafted him for that rookie production probably suffered, like myself. And now you probably hate him. You probably hate him to his core because he let you down. You drafted him higher than you needed to. He came back, bit you on the ass. And then last year, what did you do? You finally figured out, hey, I'm not going to get this guy because he burned me. Well, last year, he burned you again because he turned it around.
He burns you because he's never once hit 20 home runs in 3 seasons. His hits are still great. He had 188 hits just last year, 86 runs, and but because of his power numbers, only 79 RBIs and only 17 home runs. Way low compared to the other guys we've already been talking about.
Right.
From what I'm seeing here is like he is a standard guy. But I just feel like people are going to end up drafting him in the 2nd, 3rd, or even the 4th round, depending on the size of your league, and I hate that.
Yeah.
I feel like you're going to find an Eric Hosmer somewhere else down the line. I feel like at this point is where your tier breaks. Am I correct here?
No, I would say this is actually maybe even the step before with Buster Posey, just because.
If you haven't drafted a first baseman now, you're going to go ahead and draft a starting pitcher.
Yeah, I would completely agree. I think Eric Hosmer is the break-in tiers, just because. I think Buster Posey's kind of in the middle somewhere. Eric Hosmer is the start of probably your 2nd-tier first baseman.
Well, I got to give Buster the tiebreaker there simply because of his position eligibility.
Oh, no, I don't necessarily disagree, but I think there's a clear difference between your Freddie Freeman and your Buster Posey.
Yes. Yeah, okay. I can see that.
So that's my point, and I don't think I think Buster Posey is that much better than Eric Hosmer as far as consistency goes. If you're brave enough to take Eric Hosmer, go for it, because I think he's going to start entering his power prime years. Might hit a few more home runs this year. At least that's what we're projecting him to do. However, I just can't trust him just because he's burned me so many times, and I'm not going to to give people advice to go take a guy that I'm not going to target in my drafts.
Well, so I think you bring up an interesting point. Eric Hosmer is a guy with a lot of potential, a lot of faith in that people are expecting him to finally be that guy. People are expecting him to be up and coming. All his projections are higher than they were last year. And then on the other flip side, you got the Mirror Universe, the guy who used to be that guy. He is now on the downswing of things. He used to be the number one guy, and now he's fallen all the way down to number 9. I believe he was way outside even the top 12 last year at first baseman. Here he is coming in at 9. Probably on name recognition alone. What are your thoughts and feelings, and where are you ranking this year, Albert Pujols?
Man, that's a tough call. Just because for so long he was the king. He was the king for so long. And do you really discount his production moving forward based on just one really bad season? And honestly,
are you getting value because of last season? Are getting him at number 9, or are you the stupid one to take him at 9 when he should be going at 20?
You're an idiot if you take him inside the top 10.
Wow. Okay, so
now,
your faith is way down on him.
Yes,
you like Hosmer more than you like Pujols.
Yeah, I gotta like Hosmer more than I like Pujols, only because they're actually, based on their inconsistencies in the last, we'll say, 2 years, it's been a role reversal with those guys. But when you look at Pujols last year, way down. We're talking he had half as many fantasy points. If you play in a points league, he had half the points that the number 1 overall first baseman did last year. It's bad news if you were a Pujols owner last year.
So what do you equate it to? What you don't think he can bounce back from this? Do you think this was injury? Do you think this is the change of scenery and the changing of teams? Why did his numbers go down so much?
The answer is...
And therefore, based on that answer, you don't think he can overcome it?
The answer is a lot of things.
Did he just get paid?
Well, the answer is injury. That's the number 1. The
injury to his check writing hand?
That's probably it.
Did he get he got a paper cut at the old ATM machine?
Yeah, that'll really affect your power numbers. No, the answer is injury. And so if you're a person looking to target Pujols in your draft this year, you hope it's injury for sure. But also, if you look at Josh Hamilton's production last year, and we'll go more into this in our podcast on the outfielders, his production was way down. And I think anytime you play a team sport like this and you count so much on one individual at a time, you depend on those guys that hit in front of and behind you. And unless those guys are pulling their own weight, it's hard to bring your numbers up. So maybe the fact that Pujols was hurt for a portion last year, and his numbers were obviously going to be down because he missed so many games, and then to follow that up with when he was playing hurt, his production probably wasn't as good. And then finally, when you look at guys who have underperforming players on their team behind or in front of them in the lineup, it really doesn't help you. And with that in mind, I think you got to consider Pujols as a potential bounce back candidate. But I honestly can't take the risk because I also don't trust Josh Hamilton. And I'm not sure I trust the Angels aside from Mike Trout.
Interesting. I think it's going to be incredibly interesting to see where Pujols goes in mock drafts. I think in every draft, in every league, in a real life draft, you're going to be sitting there in a room with your buddy who's going to see Albert Pujols' name still on the board in round 4 and go, oh shit, Albert Pujols, I got him, and he's going to go way too high in most drafts. Yeah. I think in most actual people know what they're doing, and on a piece of paper, they're going to have him a lot lower and never even have a chance to draft him where they really think they should. So then it all becomes a coin flip on, are all these stupid people who are drafting on a name only going to be rewarded with their blind faith, with their stupidity, and is everyone just overthinking this?
So,
or is it the classic, they bought too early, screwed themselves over because they drafted New York Yankee style.
Right. So let me ask you this: you say drafting in the 4th round's too early?
I think for the number 9 first baseman, is if you say that's the case.
Well, let me tell you this: anyone listening to our podcast and is going number 9 first baseman in the 4th round, that's a deal. and usually it would be.
I just
but
feel like
this year we're talking about Albert Pujols, and we're talking about the guy who, on average, is going right around 50 in most drafts right now. Early time to draft, obviously. We're talking about,
Yeah, see, I just completely
early to
disagree
mid.
with that. I feel like if you don't like Albert Pujols, you can't take him in the top 50 players. And if you do like Pujols, he should go higher than 50. I think that number is a median in between everyone drafting him at 20 and 70.
And you're probably right. I just
I don't
think
think he's going 50 in any leagues. He's either going way earlier or even later, because if he lasted to 50, then he's going to keep lasting.
Yeah. So if you're looking at Pujols and maybe targeting
So
him,
where are you taking him?
I would actually maybe be the guy who actually does take him at 50.
Wow, you just got done all this shit about injuries and stuff, and you don't think he's ever going to come back from it. You think he's gone, but you think he's good enough, and you have enough value there at 50
Well,
to take him as your number one first baseman
I think potentially because of
over guys we're about to talk about yet.
the style of a lot of leagues have utility spots and DH spots that you could use to maybe fill him in.
But you're not drafting your utility guy at number 50.
Depends on how you play the game. A lot of people
Okay.
have the strategy of all hitters first. If I'm looking at
Grab Freddie Freeman and then swing around and pick up Pujols?
only because if you're looking at your 5th round guy, you might could get some value there if he does bounce back. If it turns out that it was all completely health related with Pujols, and you cash in on that check, then good for you. And that's why I'm willing to take the risk at that right around round 5. I want to seal up a couple positions in rounds 1 through 4 first, but round 5 I might be willing to take a risk depending on other people in my draft, what they have, what they're looking at.
Don't like it. I think Albert Pujols, the man, should be going like in the 10th round, but the steroids he takes on a day-to-day basis is definitely a first-round pick in my book. Sign me up for some of that. Moving on, number 10, we're going to the final double digits. Adrian Gonzalez, Dodgers.
Man.
Is it Gonzalez? Gonzaga?
I think it's actually Consuelos.
I don't speak Spanish. I do not know. So Adrian Gonzalez, what do you think about him?
Some solid production last year. The Dodgers.
Okay, go ahead.
I've said production like 6,000 times.
Yes,
tonight.
yes. Lead everything with, it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Buzzword. No, I think this year could be another solid year for Adrian Gonzalez. It's Gonzalez, right?
Let's just go with it.
We'll just go with Gonzalez.
Everyone correct us on the forums, please.
Yeah. So if you look at his team next year, moving forward to this year, hopefully you're counting on a couple of these guys to either do what they did last year or do better than they did last year, like a Matt Kemp. You hope that he turns it around a little bit. We're not talking about outfielders today, so we'll just talk about Adrian Gonzalez. But I think if you're taking your first baseman of the draft and you get this guy, I think you've got yourself a steal probably. At this point, you probably need to have a starting pitcher, maybe a couple position players that might be a little better for you. If you can get this guy as your number one first baseman, you're going to be okay. So if you want to take the strategy of if you don't trust the Goldschmidts, the Chris Davises of the world, go ahead and get the Adrian Gonzalez and just plug him in, play him, and just let it ride.
Don't like it. He's got a goatee. That's all I have to say. He's done. Never trust a man with a goatee.
They usually are the villain.
Gotta go, because, honestly, I have to go with, I can't believe this has fallen so far. This guy was money last year. Alan Craig.
Wow, yeah.
People forget how good he was.
Flies under the radar.
He was surrounded by so much other good talent that I think a lot of people didn't realize just how good he was when he was surrounded by all those other guys. Alan Craig, amazing last year, and I just think he's going to go up even more. He's got only 13 home runs compared to 22 before, but he's got an amazing good batting average. His hits were 160 hits. This guy went 4 for 5 like every goddamn night. It seemed like a lot for a while there. He was amazing. This is the guy who gets hot, stays hot, and this is the St. Louis Cardinals. You know they're going to put up some runs.
Well, it's funny that you say this, and I'm sorry to have to throw this back in your face, but you realize you're boosting up a guy who, again, has dual eligibility. And I find that hilarious. I find that hilarious. Yeah.
That's amazing.
For those of you who
do
don't,
that.
For those of you who don't remember and overlook Alan Craig as just a first baseman and maybe think, he's not a Paul Goldschmidt or a Chris Davis, remember that you can also plug him into the outfield, and he's probably going to have better production than a lot of the outfielders that you can get this late in the draft. Just remember that moving forward. Dual eligibility definitely helps when it comes to injury time. Just keep him in the back of your mind because he's up on. If he falls in your lap, grab that net and catch that beautiful butterfly.
I love Alan Craig. The guy's amazing. If you can get him as your starting first baseman, as one of the last guys to take a first baseman as a starter,
Right, yeah.
I think Alan Craig has got tremendous upside potential.
No, I completely agree.
Number 12, Carlos Santana. Terrible musician. I don't know what the hell he was doing with Rob Thomas. But not a bad catcher / first baseman, wouldn't you say?
Again, dual eligibility with you, it's like you just smile ear to ear and just
Whenever I bring up dual eligibility, people drink. That is the drinking. That is our drinking game.
That is the new podcast drinking game. If you haven't tuned in before, tune in now and grab yourself some booze because you're going to be taking some shots when it comes to baseball season.
So Carlos Santana, any other insight further into? I mean, he is going right now as the number 12. Why is he so low?
Well, he's so low because of the batting average.
Okay.
There's a lot of guys a lot higher. You got guys like Joey Votto who are going to get on base, especially those of you who play in the rotisserie with on-base percentage versus average or just average over points, a points league. Those of you who have to focus on that probably aren't going to look to Carlos Santana as your first baseman. But those of you who don't, those of you who play in a points league, Carlos Santana could be a very good value for you. He's going to hit 20 home runs plus.
Thank you.
He's going to get 80 plus RBIs, and he's going to score right around 80 runs.
Thank you. I was just about to bring this up. Now that we're down to the final 12, if people are playing in other types of leagues, for instance, head-to-head points leagues, where maybe something as purely as batting average doesn't matter as much as actually just getting on base, which of these top players that we just talked about do you think moves up, and which ones do you think then moves down?
The one that moves down the most, I think, is probably Edwin Encarnacion.
Okay.
Just because, wait, you're talking about points?
As in, we've been discussing everything based on Roto facts.
Okay. Now
Now that we're in a points league, which players now come down, and which ones then move up to replace them?
I think probably out of the top few, I think
The top 12, anything?
The top 12, I'm going to go with...
Like you just brought up that Santana now moves up. Do you move him up now up into the top 10, maybe even top 8 because now you're in a points league? And if that's the case, who then moves down?
I think if anyone's going to move down, it's probably Albert Pujols.
Okay.
But I don't know if it's because of the different styles of leagues. I think it's potentially for other reasons. I really don't want to mess with the top 12 the way we have it now, just because...
Regardless of point system scoring.
Right.
Okay.
Right, just because...
These are the guys you like no matter what.
Right, and I think...
The hell be damned with the rules.
Right. I think Carlos Santana's in a pretty good spot just because he's going to produce, and, I mean, shit. I've said it before, I don't need to say it again.
Any other players? So we just went through our top 12.
Mm-hmm.
If you are in your standard 12-team leagues... These should be your starting first baseman. So, any players you like with potential upside to sit in your utility spot, who are the next couple of guys off your board? Who are the guys that you would love to have swing and pick up early before they blow up? Who are you on higher than most people?
There's a few really exciting names on this list that come after the number 12 spot. I'm excited to watch this kid, Jose Abreu, play.
Jose Abreu, no shit.
Yeah.
That is not who I thought you were going to say.
No, I know it's not. But I love the young kids with a lot of power. And I think this kid could, if if you want to talk about last year's comparisons, another Cuban that came out last year, Yasiel Puig, came out of the gates smoking hot, on fire. I think 2 weeks had just incredible numbers. I think this kid could really put up some big numbers.
I'm surprised because I really thought you'd go cheapskate on me and just say Mark Trumbo.
You know, I thought about Mark Trumbo. I've actually been...
Everyone thinks about Mark Trumbo.
I've been a supporter of Mark Trumbo. The only thing is, once they traded Trumbo to Arizona, it sort of worries me about how much exactly he's going to play and how he's going to be used. I think they will use him primarily in right field, but moving from American League to National League, if you look at his playing time in the last several years, anytime Mark Trumbo starts to struggle, in the AL, you can just take him out of the outfield and plug him in as a DH or plug him in where you need to. Albert Pujols was hurt last year, so he played a little bit of first base. When it comes to those things in an NL, on an NL team, he may not get the playing time if he starts to struggle. And that's the only thing you worry about with Mark Trumbo because he's a roller coaster ride. He's very hot, cold. He can get on streaks where he just tears up other teams. And then he can, on the flip side of that, just completely tank. And that's what I worry about with him. Although...
I feel like Mark Trumbo is on everyone's list as the guy that's going to make the next big step. I think Mark Trumbo will be one of those first guys that gets drafted as a utility spot guy. I feel like he's going to be really talked around in early trade rumors because I feel like this is the guy who's going to go into the league with the most chatter going on that's just going to up his value more than anyone else's. I'm going to stay away from Mark Trumbo because I don't want to pay those high prices.
High prices at number 13?
At 13, yeah. I feel like he won't end there. I'm saying he'll get drafted as a starter.
Okay.
I think he's at 12 now. He won't be there come actual draft day.
Okay. Well,
he's the guy who's gonna. Everyone thinks he's a sleeper, to the point where he ruins all potential value because he's no longer a sleeper. Now he's a starter.
Now, for those of you listening, which is like what we're up to, like
2 or 3, I think.
2 or 3.
Hi,
listeners.
John. Hi, Marcia. Appreciate you're here.
Thanks, Mom. Mark Trumbo's one of those guys, like Marshmallow said, he could very well get overdrafted. But if you're playing in a league that the guy's trying to sell, Mark Trumbo, don't be afraid to buy. Mark Trumbo can give you some points, especially in a points league where you don't have to worry about the average, like I said before. Mark Trumbo's always there. He's going to be solid for you. Don't be afraid to make some trades for him. But then again, as Marshmallow said, don't overdraft him.
Any other new hotness coming up in the leagues that you think you really like coming up that maybe more people don't know about? Guys, keep your eye on.
New hotness. I mean, we could talk about guys like Justin Smoke. He's been around the league for a while. He just never really has put up the.
Well, that's not really new
points.
Hotness.
No,
he's been shitty for a while.
But there's really not now. I'm going to throw a name out here. You may not consider him new hotness.
Okay.
But he's actually been hurt. He's been banged up the last couple of years. He's missed a lot of time. Corey Hart.
Oh, okay. So he's not Jennifer Lawrence. He's more of an Emma Stone type. He's been around a couple of years extra.
Oh, I've beat her up several times, if you catch my drift.
And I think I do. No, Corey Hart. I love Corey Hart. I think I'm sitting here looking here, 23. That's very surprising to me. I think he's the waiver wire guy that I think a lot of people are going to pick up. He's going to be on a lot of teams this year. And is that, am I eyes to see me? Is that dual eligibility?
Yep. You and the dual eligibility.
I'll definitely take him over a lot of other guys right then and there for that reason.
Right. Yeah. No, Corey Hart, he's going to be back on the scene this year. I believe he had a knee surgery last year, which kept him out most of the season. Don't be afraid to scoop him up at the end of your draft as maybe a late round flyer. Because a lot of people forget, but Corey Hart was an all-star, 2 years ago, competed in the home run derby.
Hey, Babe Ruth didn't need knees.
He did.
Corey Hart can get it done.
I think Babe Ruth only needed like a beer gut and a couple hands, right?
And forward momentum. Any old hotness you think could potentially bounce back? We kind of talked about Pujols taking a fall. I'm looking here. I'm seeing a lot of old guys that used to be in the top 10. Any of these guys you think have a chance to regain their former glory? Mark Teixeira, Nick Swisher, LaRoche, hell, all the way down to freaking Adam Dunn. Any of these guys you think can jump all the way up? Hell, even just Mike Napoli used to be in the top 10. What do you think about these guys? Is there any chance, or are these, again, just names?
There's a chance for all these guys. There's a couple I like more than others, obviously. I've always been a supporter of Adam Dunn. I don't know if I can be this year.
I think he's done.
Strikes out more than any player in the history of baseball. It's astounding. I think 2 years ago he had struck out 100 games in a row. At least one strikeout in like 100 games in a row. Something ridiculous. The guy strikes out a ton. I just don't know if that ever improves. And just because of that, a lot of leagues give you, if you play in a point system, it's negative points for a strikeout usually. And if you play in an average league, oh man.
I think Adam
God
Dunn,
bless you for taking
I think
Adam Dunn.
just might be fired. You thought I was going to say Dunn.
I did. I thought you were going to say
no,
Dunn.
nope, I wouldn't make such a corny joke. Anything else rounding out our first base rundown here?
Yeah, there's one guy I want to talk about, and you haven't even given me the chance.
Well, I probably did that on purpose, but since you're giving me the guilt trip, go right ahead.
Yeah, Mitch Moreland.
Mitch Moreland?
Yeah.
Why are we wasting our listeners' time with Mitch Moreland?
Well, because I think there's a few good things coming into this year. Mitch Moreland is going to have some help. I think he's going to finally feel the fire of competition with Prince Fielder. I think the Rangers will use Mitch Moreland as a 50-50 split first baseman with Prince Fielder. I could be very wrong. I could be very right. Mitch Moreland is the better defender, but he's definitely not the better hitter. However, I think with Prince coming in and the offense overall getting better, I think Mitch Moreland could be a surprise. Last year, Mitch had 23 home runs, which I think was a career best for him. And he's like 28 years old. He's finally starting to see more playing time that he hasn't seen the year before. Yes, in case you're wondering, I am a Rangers fan. I am a Rangers homer. So it's
all 100% bullshit. Because what I'm about to say is that Mitch Moreland will have more games on the IR this year than he will actually be on the field. I put that curse on Mitch Moreland.
That's awful.
Yes. I'm basically going to make orphans of his children.
That's
and I understand he's married. However, I assume that his wife will die of grief.
Wow. We just took a really dark turn in the Drunk on a Weeknight podcast studio.
All right, guys. Good luck on your drafts. Go hit those mock boards. Let's clown around a little bit. See what you can find out. See if you agree with us. Let us know. Send in your phone calls. Send in your text messages. We don't have any of that set up, but just go ahead and guess a random number and send it on in. And on behalf of Marshmallow, say bye, Hitler.
Bye, Hitler.
Go fuck yourself.